choose to...
We don't have victories.
Reaching for new heights.
Hey guys, and welcome to the third episode of In Space and On the Left with your host Carl Clark and Justin Clark.
Hi.
We hope
Good to be sitting on a floor in general transit to awesomeness.
Yes. We hope you enjoyed the first two episodes. Today we have an episode on you were doing the NASA Earth Sciences, I believe, Carl.
Yeah, this is going to be coming out a long time after Earth Day of this year when there was the March for Science. But the week of us recording this is a few days after that. So in honor of Earth Day, I thought I would take a little bit of time out of what I'm really, really, really interested in, which is deep space exploration, human exploration of the cosmos and cosmology, to talk about this nice little pale blue dot that we all live on and the things that NASA is doing to actually study our home.
Stop lying and saying you care. The only reason you care is because until we can find a better place to launch our rockets from, we're kind of stuck here. But you'll jump ship as soon as there's another place that has better atmospheric conditions for getting us off the planet. So don't lie to me, Carl. I don't like it when you lie to me.
I'm reminded of a couple things that I do want to touch on really quickly before I go through these missions. And I know. Absorbing time is a terrible thing that I do. But there was a couple things that happened this last week that I do want to comment on in the general popular culture zeitgeist, whatever the hell. First is Bill Maher. His new rule this last week was like how we need to not go to Mars because Earth is a shithole and we're making it a shithole, and the idea of going to Mars to escape the shithole that we've made Earth is really dumb. I talked about this in episode 1, so I'm not going to retread a whole lot of territory on this. I'll just simply say, Mr. Maher, you are wrong.
He's wrong about a lot of stuff. That's the guy. I don't like him, man. He gives progressives, and if you want to call them liberals, he gives them a bad name. He says a lot. He says a lot of ignorant shit. Yeah,
he says a lot of really dumb stuff. The one thing I do like about him, though, is he typically gets a lot of really good guests.
Yeah, and then he insults the size of their genitals and shit like that. Like,
yeah,
it's no good if you're given the Mercedes Benz and then you decide to fucking just drive it into a wall. What good is having the Mercedes in the first place?
I think I like him just a little bit more than you, but I totally agree that he's wrong about a lot of stuff, and he can be a little bit too irreverent. He tries to say, "Oh, this is a comedy show," when no, like Last Week Tonight and Full Frontal is a comedy show. You're doing news commentary, so
yeah,
with a little bit of comedy thrown in at the beginning and the end.
I don't know. I think he's a smart dude, but also I think he is he's kind of one of those. It's like one of those examples, like how you can have extreme intelligence in some aspects of the world and everything, but in others you're just a complete idiot. Like Ben Carson, like the dude is a surgical genius, man. He wrote the textbook on some of the techniques that they still use today in surgery. Yeah. But he also thinks that the pyramids are grain silos and the Earth is 6,000 years old. Like, you can be hyper intelligent in one little field, but just be a complete idiot in another. And
humans are really good at compartmentalization.
Yes, we are. It allows us to shoot other humans and think that, no, they're different than us. They eat a different food for breakfast. So
yeah, which again brings me back to that pale blue dot. Think of all the rivers of blood that were spilled by all the generals and kings and demagogues so they could just be a ruler over this tiny fraction of a dot. Like, it just doesn't make much of any sense. Speaking of not making sense, our Uber El Presidente Extreme, which is a reference to one of my friends, what he called one of his D&D characters, El Presidente Extreme.
Oh, God.
kiss the ring or be destroyed. Well, I decided to put in Uber and make it a reference to our great Lord and Orange Savior.
Dude, he is.
Yes.
Why is he shutting down all of this? All of this, like these data troves, basically. Like there are these huge amounts of data that we need, and he's shutting them down. Every day you hear, not every day. That's an exaggeration. Sorry, but you hear a lot more than you would like that the president is shutting down another section of the sciences.
Right, which we'll get to because the missions that I'm covering, one is in concept, and two are currently operational, and the other and the last one that I will cover, it was canceled by Trump. But one thing that happened this week was we had an American hero set another milestone in her career, Dr. Peggy Whitson, sorry. And she actually was commander back when I was a tour guide, when I first started doing my talks at Mission Control as a tour guide. So I got to watch her be up in space for 6 months, and now she was the head of the astronaut office at the Johnson Space Center. She quit that job so she could fly again, because if you're the head of the astronaut office, you're still an astronaut, but you're not active flight status. And
dude, once you're an astronaut, you're always an astronaut. You can't take that away from those people.
No, I mean, no. It's kind of like being, a Marine. You're always a Marine, but you aren't an active.
Yeah, you just
Marine.
can't. You just can't get in the giant 10 cube that we're launching into space. You're not ready for that anymore. Sorry, guys, it's early and I'm not feeling good. My metaphors are just not there. They fall apart real quick, and my brain is not. I haven't even finished my first cup of coffee before we started this yet, and I know it's cliche, but like my brain does not finish thoughts like concisely if I haven't had at least one cup of coffee yet.
Oh God, I did not mean to do that.
I didn't hear what you did.
I opened up something that had an interview with Trump, and because I forget the names of the other astronauts. One of them is his name is Fisher, and he's actually a friend of a friend, and he recently got to go up on it. He's on his first flight, and then the other astronaut, her name is failing me right now, and she recently went up, and she's also really awesome. She got hired basically because she knows how to sequence DNA, and she sequenced DNA for the first time in space. So she was sitting next to the president during this whole interview process. The two things I want to mention about this, I think it's great that the president is trying to highlight NASA, and the more times astronauts and scientists are on TV, particularly women making milestones, is great. But there were a couple things that he said. He also seemed fairly unenthusiastic about the whole thing. Like, I highly recommend go to the NASA YouTube channel and watch the interview.
Did he forget to sign something again and leave early?
No, he seemed very disinterested with the whole process, and he was very clearly just reading notes.
He's trying to think about that sixth hole at Mar-a-Lago. That's the one that always makes him lose a stroke or two that more than he would like. So, I mean, he's thinking about the important stuff.
Yeah, true enough.
Did you see that they were advertising Mar-a-Lago on the State Department's websites in like the UK embassy and everything like that? They were advertising it as like the winter White House or something, I think.
Yeah. Here, 1 second. Let's just give me a quiet moment. All right, cool. We're not going to. All right, so Commander Peggy Winston, Flight Engineer Jack Fisher, and reading the caption here. Yeah, she set the record for the most consecutive days on orbit by any U.S. astronaut, 534 total days spent in space.
Oh, wow.
And then, here we go. Kate Rubins, that was her name. She just got home, and she sequenced DNA for the first time. I'll leave a link to the video on the thing. It's 19 minutes. It's kind of hilarious. But the two things he talks about that really just made my skin crawl was he made hint that he both wanted us to go to Mars before the end of his first term and by the end of his second term. So, like,
That's not even remotely possible.
well, if you wanted to entirely retool almost all aerospace manufacturing in the entire country
Well,
and
weren't
give
we talking about, we were
NASA,
talking about last episode how
yeah.
even money is not going to solve the timescale problem. Like the
Well, if you maybe gave NASA a budget of $100 billion a year for the
oh, and
next 4 years,
you were able to hire as much people as like
yeah,
one
like if
branch of the
like
military has.
you would have to retool all of America's aerospace.
Yeah, like
And if
you'd
and
you'd
as space
basically be going to
crazy
like
as I am,
yeah, you'd basically be going to like Boeing or something and saying like, all right, you're no longer making anything but shuttle parts until we have this thing done.
yeah,
Or
and as space crazy as I am,
but also,
that's a bad idea.
why would his supporters even like that? That because that would cause so much government interference in business that it would be crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but they wouldn't
Um,
care because the government would be paying lots and lots of money. They only like government interference whenever it has a profit. Not
yeah.
whenever it keep
Uh,
not whenever the government comes in and says no, no, no. You can't pump hydrochloric acid into the watershed. Then they don't like
which is
government. Then government's too intrusive.
it's not a thing. No, it was funny though. And just clarity here, I do not actually personally know Peggy Winston, but just reading into a couple of her statements when they were talking about Mars, she was like, yeah, the hardware that's being built right now is for tests that will eventually be used for hardware that will take humans up and to Mars. So I think, just from my own personal perspective, it's probably my own bias on the thing, going back to episode 2, like the accelerated plan of putting a crew on the first exploration mission, I think that was a dig at him for that. So, yeah. Um, but anyway, the other thing that really scares me that he mentioned was, oh, and space has tremendous military applications.
So
And I'll just let that sink.
that's scary.
Yeah. As effective as cyber technology is, there is no one greater military technology
Yeah,
that could
you just have
be more destructive than militarizing
yeah,
space.
you have like a couple satellites with couple nuclear armed weapons on them that are set to launch at any second
You know,
at any part of the globe.
there's a lot of other stuff that, we don't have the technological capability to do yet.
We can put a missile in space though.
Yeah, we can put a missile in space though, and it just we already invest, I think, too much in militarizing space with
Well,
satellite kill
yeah,
vehicles
well
and things like
also
that.
that militarizing space is not going to come from the Air Force budget. No, no, they're gonna take NASA off the kind of things that they want to do.
All right, so that's just insanely scary to me. Um, there isn't, and hey, I hear T-38s flying over. The astronauts are training. Um, so yeah, that going back to the planet Earth, there is nothing that could possibly be more destructive to humankind than militarizing space. It is an exceedingly bad idea.
Dude,
And
all of the Fallout like fans out there are probably like licking their lips. They're like, I've been preparing for this for decades. I am ready. I have played every Fallout game.
yeah, playing video games is not going to prepare people for this. The So we invest more money in militarizing space than any other country on Earth. So I don't subscribe to the argument of, oh, well, uh, um, if we don't do it, China's just going to do it. And no, we're doing it, and we're causing the arms race. Like, we're the ones driving it because we're the ones that invested in it first and most. and we should be investing in earth science. Yay! I had like 2 really awesome segues where I could be poetical about it, but I'm just segueing and saying screw it.
Pivot.
Pivot. We got to pivot. So yeah, we could invest far more in Earth observation, which is cheaper and more beneficial to everyone, as you will soon find out, than what we do in satellite kill vehicles and all that other crap. Really, the interview just kind of shows that he doesn't care, and it's
Unless Trump is willing to bring me Cowboy Bebop style like technology right now, then he can't put missiles in space. I'm not gonna allow it. But if he can make it where I can become like a bounty hunter, then all right, then he's my president. But before that, no.
fair enough. But yeah, no, it just he just watched the interview. He seems very, very disinterested, and it's only for the notoriety and the brand that NASA has, which I worry that he may ruin. So moving on to my actual topic for the episode is NASA Earth Sciences, and this is the division of
hold
science.
on. Before you go on to that, can we also take a second to talk about the March for Science?
Yes.
I just wanted to know your opinion on it.
Well, 1 second.
Since we're already on like all of the news topics, we might as well touch on this one.
This is true. So
because I know my segment's not going to take super long because fracking is bad. We already know
right.
that.
Right. So I mean, do you have anything specific, or are you just like wanting to know my general thoughts on it? Because my general thoughts on it are it's good. Like we need one of them a month.
One protest a month. I think we can.
Hell yeah.
I think protests are a good tool you can use for change. I don't think it is the end all be all way to initiate change. I do think it shows the government that the general public is capable of mobilizing behind key issues quickly and in large numbers. And I don't mean that for like military threat. I'm not advocating for mobilizing militias.
Yeah, but I mean, I think advocating for civil disobedience is a good idea. But peaceful civil disobedience. Yeah. Shutting down downtown DC because there's just so many people there for the Women's March.
But I think it's one tool in the protesters' toolbox.
Yeah, definitely.
But you got to have the follow up with the policy.
Yeah. You gotta get representatives from that movement, from that march, from those interests that the people care about, into the congressional offices, into the state houses.
You gotta find a way to get Ted Cruz out of the Senate. Like, I can't stand this man anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I hate about living in Texas is like, you can be as progressive as you want, and you can vote in every election. And it doesn't matter here. Ted Cruz is going to be a lifelong Senate member from this state.
Well, I'm going through a pretty big jaded period in my own life, but I have to disagree. I think leadership.
No, because no one.
Cultural movements are things of persuasion. You have to persuade people.
I don't mean this in. I mean this in the most basic, like what has to happen by the facts rules is the Mexican community is just not, they're not into voting, they're not into mobilizing, and they are the biggest minority group in Texas and the only ones capable of really, really pushing a democratic agenda, and they just don't mobilize. Not in Texas. Part of it is on them, and part of it is on the things that Texas Republicans do to disenfranchise them. But even with all the disenfranchisements and everything that goes on, their numbers are still not there. Yes, Texas is gerrymandered to shit. Yes, Texas has some weird voter laws and everything like that. But you still gotta get out there and fight those and
Yeah,
vote.
you gotta at least try and show up.
Yeah, like
You know,
the Democrats may not win because of how the lines are drawn and everything, but because I think Texas is kind of similar to the United States, where the popular candidate might not win.
Well, the other thing about just voter turnout in general in Texas when it comes to the Hispanic and Latinx community is this is kind of my own anecdotal, so if I'm wrong, please let me know. And not trying to be insulting in any way, but it's not as a cultural thing for that particular community to go and vote.
I want to see.
I know a lot of Hispanic folks was like, we just don't worry about it. We weren't taught to do it.
Well, but you look out in like California,
So
they have
I could be
really
very
good,
wrong about that.
Well, in like California, they have some pretty strong worker right groups out there that have actually got some changes through and everything like that.
Yeah, and again, that kind of goes back to just the overall culture in the state. Like it's just different here. The Hispanic community in California is a different Hispanic community than in Texas.
That's true.
And again, if I want to be wrong, I would much rather those folks come out in droves.
But the Republicans know that if they did come out in droves, it would be bad.
Basically, that makes Democrats lose.
Yeah.
But
also, Democrats, stop living in cities. Stop pushing all your votes to one little district. Spread out, disperse. Register where your parents live.
There are some movements to try and get smaller rural town America to get more tech jobs and lure young millennials out there.
No,
that's going to be hard to do.
Texas has early voting, so you'll be fine. Just register where your parents live. Have them mail you your ballot.
Well, see, I've been moving around all over the place, and I stay registered in the district that I'm in. I forget which number. I think it's 26. But Steve Babin is my congressman.
No.
And the reason why I stay where I am, even though I've moved all across the country during my graduate school, is because his district literally encompasses the Johnson Space Center.
Yeah.
So everything about human spaceflight he has a hand in.
So what you're telling me, Carl, is you've been involved in voter fraud? You've been voting in districts in which you don't reside?
Well, I'm registered to vote here, and I've been a resident here.
No, Democrats, go register where your parents live. Even if you're like 45, go register where someone else in your family, like where your parents live, because you got to stop congregating in cities so much. God damn it. Cities suck. Why do you even live there?
So you're a country boy?
I guess, man. Austin has jaded me. I hate that city so much. It's cool to like walk around and everything, and like the Capitol building is gorgeous. Like I would put our Capitol building against any Capitol building in the country, you know. But
Virginia's is pretty nice too. I've been there.
Do they have a giant like mural-sized portrait of Davy Crockett right when you walk in? I don't think so. So Texas is better.
No,
I'm going to put our state capitol against
don't.
any other state capital in the country. Like you can't touch us.
Yeah.
We also have the tallest state capital in the country. So
I'm not saying that ours isn't the best. I'm just saying that other ones are beautiful too.
I mean,
but ours is the best.
They're nice, but ours is the best.
It is.
Let's make that clear. I am proud to be a Texan, but there's things about Texas that I fucking hate.
What was it? Trey Crowder always says, "Oh, my people."
Anyway, so we've killed half the show already.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the earth sciences?
We need to like not do this when you're sleepy, I think is the thing.
This is the casual episode. It's the third episode.
Yeah. So the big over-under of all of this is to kind of bring it back to Texas is and I'll be bringing it back to Texas a few times because one of the missions was actually cited by a number one hero, Wonder Boy, Charlie freaking Major General Bolden, when he was talking to Ted Cruz in a Senate committee hearing on Earth sciences, because Republicans think that Earth sciences isn't something that NASA should be doing, even though Earth is in space. Earth is part of space. And Eisenhower...
Can you prove that, though? Like, can you
yes,
prove
I can prove that.
that? Okay.
Eisenhower, when he signed NASA's existence into law, it was deemed that NASA would study the atmosphere. And that's changed a little bit. It's expanded from studying the atmosphere to studying the climate and the weather and all these kinds of things like that, because NASA's good at building spacecraft and managing spacecraft. And it's just easier to do that engineering management thing within an agency that just does that all the time.
Yeah, I feel that.
And then have the scientists collaborate.
I feel that a lot of people who are anti-NASA and everything, they feel NASA is a partisan like institution. It can be further from the truth. Like, they just want to do their science. And they need some funding to do it. Like, you can't do
well,
science
also
without funding.
NASA in Congress has had a lot of bipartisan support. There's a couple of things that are political pinballs, and you can go back and
these
listen
people,
to episode 1 and 2. And
having been
you'll get a
around
much
you
better
has
idea.
introduced me to all these people. Anyone out there who might be listening who thinks that NASA is not worth it, like, and that they have like an agenda that is liberal, like, no, these people are fucking nerds, and they just geek out on doing this science shit. Just let them do it. They're super good at it. They study so goddamn hard and took so many high-level classes that I would have flunked out on the first one, and they managed to make it through like 40 of those things. And without burning out. Like, these people just want to do science. Let them do it.
One of the major managers at the Goddard Space Flight Center, I forget her name, but I ran into her at Halloween when I was interning there. She was dressed as a Jedi. And
See,
she
I
said
told you,
something.
they're fucking nerds.
Yeah, but she said something that was very, very Jedi-esque. And
Probably
she
because
said,
she can quote the whole goddamn Star Wars
no.
universe.
This was a question about climate change, and that she got at a panel, and she said, look, I don't care what the policy is. I care about being able to give the good information to policymakers. I'm a civil servant. It's not my job to say that cap and trade is better than this or that or the other thing. And honestly, I don't know, but I know what the science is, and I know what the facts are, and I know what the trends are, and I know what's happening, and I know what information is valuable for a civilization's leaders to be basing their decisions off of. And so it's my job as a civil servant to give both the leaders that have been chosen by the people and the people the best information possible, period. I don't care what the information is as long as it's as accurate as we can possibly have it. I have no agenda other than that.
So they're not trying to build a Death Star, to go with the Star Wars analogy.
Oh. We don't talk about that.
Okay.
Now, in Earth Sciences, I'm only going to cover 4 missions, and one isn't in existence and it's still being developed. Another one is on the chopping block under the Trump administration. So 2 are operational, but there are 27 operating Earth science missions right now, observing the planet Earth in various ways for various reasons and aggregating an immense amount of data. I was having a discussion a little while ago with one of my friends' parents about climate change. He's like, oh, they can't even get the weather right. And I'm like, bullcrap. Like, we get the weather right a lot now. Like, it's been getting better and better and better. Yeah, we still get wrong. It's a complex system. There's margins of error, but the amount that we actually get the weather correct is insane. So
yeah.
the first mission that I want to cover, I'm going to absolutely butcher it because it is a horrendous acronym, and that's just a thing. So it's the High Spiri mission, and so it's obviously an acronym. It stands for Hyperspectral Infrared Imager. And so this is the mission that's in development right now. And it will be a low Earth orbit, shortwave infrared imager, and a mid-infrared imager. And so that's part of the electromagnetic spectrum. If you talk to astrophysicists, microwave radiation, gamma radiation, visible light, infrared, it's all just light to them. So this is observing light. We see it like, in thermal imaging like the Predator does. And, we give off light energy. It's thermal energy, and this is what this observes. And so the mission was recommended in the 2007 National Research Council Decadal Survey, which those surveys are basically, this is the scientific community getting together and telling Congress, hey, these are the things that we should be studying. And you'll see a trend that this decadal survey in 2007 kind of permeates these 4 missions. And so there's a precursor mission that's been going on since 2013. And it ended last year, where it performs observations with the sensor systems, only they're on aircraft rather than satellites. And so there's 2 platforms. There's the Twin Otter aircraft, and then there's the ER-2 aircraft, which is a civilian version of the U-2. NASA actually has one at the Ellington Field in Houston, and they fly it every now and then. It does atmospheric research. They'll fly over hurricanes and things like that. So what this satellite does, what its 2 instruments do, is it observes in the infrared spectrum, and it does spectroscopy, which is the investigation and measurement of spectra produced when matter interacts with or emits electromagnetic radiation. So imagine a rainbow, right?
Okay.
And imagine there are little lines running through it, like that just black out parts of the color. Well, when light hits an object and you break that light apart in a prism, you'll see those lines. And that is spectra. That's spectrographic analysis, because those areas of the visible light spectrum, and in this case with the satellite, the infrared light spectrum, are being completely absorbed. That energy wavelength is being completely absorbed by the material. And then the rest of it's being reflected. And that's how we see it. Well, if you know what element it is, and when we have the periodic table of elements, you can shine light on it and do this, and then you go, oh, well, that's what this looks like at this wavelength in the electromagnetic spectrum. So if we see this in another place, guess what that is? It's that element. Then we're really, really good at it. I think we're to the point where we can even differentiate different isotopes using this method of telescopic or Earth observation, which is how we know that carbon-13, which is human-made carbon, because it's unstable, is different than carbon-12, which is the far older Earth carbon cycle stuff, because it's been around for so long, it's just gotten into its stable state of carbon-12. So that's some of the things that we can do with spectroscopy. It's insanely amazing, and eventually I will do an astrophysics episode, and basically everything will be about spectroscopy, because that's almost everything that they do. So anyway, the satellite will give global coverage every 30 days at 45 meters of resolution. So it's really accurate. It means that it can basically resolve buildings. Not cars, but buildings, 45 meters. And what this mission does is it monitors the carbon cycle, and it observes surface geologic activity. So it measures volcanoes and geysers and things like that. And it can detect ecosystem changes, i.e. coral reefs, land subsidence, and human-driven agricultural systems. So those are some pretty big mission objectives. It's basically helping to understand the carbon budget of the planet, what the planet does, and also kind of make general observations about the topography and like what's happening with coral reefs and again land subsidence and things of that nature. So then the next mission, this is an active mission. It's flying right now. Is called a SENS, Active Sensing of CO2 Emission over Nights and Days and Seasons. So right there in the nice big title of the NASA thing, because God word salad acronyms. And this was part of the National Research Council Decadal Survey of 2004, and it generated these recommendations. So this is a laser-based near-infrared system, and its science objectives are to see the shifts in terrestrial carbon sources and sinks. So a sink is where carbon is absorbed, so like the ocean or the ground. Identify processes controlling the biospheric carbon fluxes. So again, this is still all natural carbon fluxes. Understanding the evolving nature of oceanic carbon fluxes. So we're doing the land and the sea and how the carbon cycle works and where it's absorbed, where it's being released from.
Oh, the carbon cycle.
And this is really, really important because it's very easy for us to quantify how much carbon humans put into the atmosphere. But it's much more difficult to quantify how much carbon the Earth just kind of puts up and absorbs and puts up and absorbs and goes through its natural cycle. And then when you add in what humans throw in, you can kind of fill the bathtub and see how fast it would overflow at, basically. So this is really important data for understanding the carbon cycle. Now, this mission is meant to synergize with the orbiting Carbon Observatory, that's the mission that is currently canceled under Trump. And so,
oh no, they're stopping research that will prove that fossil fuels and their resulting carbon emissions could be bad for us. Oh no, I don't.
Well, they're stopping a satellite that is going to give us more accurate information
They're trying to stop
on what is already known.
They're trying to stop any amount of climate change, carbon research. Like, they're just trying to stop it all. And it's scary because there's a profit in prolonging ignorance.
When I get to the mission, the orbiting Carbon Observatory, you'll see like how actually really insidious it is.
Oh, I know how insidious it is.
The reason why that, specifically in the realm of Earth science, why that mission was on the chopping block. So then there's GeoCape, and it's a geostationary coastal and air pollution events mission. It monitors atmospheric chemistry and coastal ocean color. And it measures the troposphere, which is I believe it's the lowest part of the atmosphere. It measures tropospheric gases, aerosols, and ocean phytoplankton, water quality, and biochemistry. So, the very bottom of the entire food web of the planet is what it's designed to measure the health of.
And from what I understand, the bottom web of the food chain, or the bottom of the food web, is not doing too good right now.
Yeah. So maybe understanding where it's healthier than other places and why that's happening might be a good idea. So it's in a geostationary orbit over North and South America. So this will orbit at, I think, like 22,000 miles, 25,000 miles up, and which means that its orbital velocity, it's still really fast, but because the circumference of its orbit is so big, it keeps pace with the 1,000-mile-an-hour rotation at the equator of the Earth. So it's still going, 17,500 miles an hour. It just has so much more distance to cover that it stays over North and South America. So it's designed to observe.
Yeah.
So as far as making America great again, this literally observes only the Americas. Just saying. The direct benefits is health and air quality, oceans health, water resources, climate, agriculture, understanding disasters, and ecological forecasting. So small things that we deal with.
Yeah, we don't need to know whenever a hurricane's about to topple New Orleans again. We'll let them figure it out.
No, it's relatively useless. I only kind of love that city a little bit. Like, I got done working at the Stennis Space Center this last year, so I lived for a part of the last year in New Orleans, and it's a city that has its problems and its icky places like every other place, but man, it is a charming city. I love it a lot, and I never thought I would say that. So yeah, New Orleans just bites everybody the right way, I guess. Anyway, so this next one is SAMP, soil moisture active passive, and this is the one that Charlie, my hero, deployer of Hubble, administrator of the NASA, cited in one of his hearings when Ted Cruz was grilling him a little bit. And he's like, well, why do we need to do this? And he's like, do you want Texas farmers to prosper? They need this satellite, and here's why. All right, so it looks like a gold box with a solar panel and a robotic arm with a big disc at the end. The disc kind of undulates, right? And so what it's designed to do is it's designed to monitor the soil moisture and determine the freeze and thaw state of the area being mapped. It uses a radar and a radio I cannot talk. It uses radar and a radiometer to and the radar sends a pulse down to measure the echo. These are interpreted to indicate the level of moisture in the soil. So my guess is that depending on the mass of the soil, because it has more water in it, it will absorb a different amount of the radio wave than it would if it didn't have water in it. And it will absorb different amounts of the radio wave if that water's frozen or not as well, depending on the state of matter that it's in, whether solid or liquid. And so the radiometer, the radiometer, passively takes radio emission readings. So it listens to radio waves that are coming off of the earth and from the soil to understand the temperature of the soil, the state of the moisture in the soil. So that's what gets the freezing thaw. And then so it orbits at 685 kilometers, and the dish revolves at around 14.6 RPM, creating an observation coverage area of 1,000 kilometers. And it does every 3 days complete coverage at soil depth of a complete coverage at a soil depth of 3 centimeters. So this will observe the entire planet every 3 days. And this is up there right now. So it has a 3-year mission to monitor the hydrosphere state, understand the link of terrestrial water and energy and carbon cycles, estimate global water and energy fluxes at land surface, quantity net carbon flux in the boreal landscapes, BORELA. Let's see what that means.
Wait, you mean you don't know what it is?
I failed to look that up. So
God damn it, Carl.
Wikipedia says
Wikipedia is not a valid source.
Yeah, it's the first thing that came up. Shut up. It is an ecosystem with a subarctic climate. Okay, so yeah. So basically anything that doesn't just freeze most of the year. And it will enhance weather and climate forecasting skills that we have, and it'll develop improved flood prediction and drought monitoring capabilities. So the way that I like to put this, what this mission will do is it will allow us to crop rotation the Earth. Is what it's kind of designed to be able to do in just kind of a nutshell. So it will enhance our understanding and allow us to predict better the availability of water. It will quantify soil moisture, is key to finding a missing carbon sink. We know how much carbon's in the atmosphere. We know how much is being absorbed in a lot of other places. And we think, since water tends to absorb a lot of carbon dioxide, that the soil water is actually absorbing some missing carbon. And that is not to say that we don't know, like, hey, look, our math is really good and our predictions are actually getting more and more accurate, and this is going to help us get them more accurate. So don't use this as a way of saying, oh, you don't know where all the carbon is. It's a very small amount of the carbon that we don't know where it is. And all of our models are still fairly commiserate with what is actually happening in nature. So this is just refining our knowledge and refining our data sets so we can do better. And so, yeah, the other benefits is it will monitor droughts, predict floods, assist in crop productivity, which is a really big deal. Again, going back to what Charlie Bolden said to Ted Cruz about Texas farmers.
I mean, also look what happened when we talked about last week. Whenever your crop soil gets destroyed.
Yep. Last thing the United States needs to end up in because of the Southwest is a situation where we end up in some kind of weird, violent civil disobedience, quasi-civil war state because of climate change and because our infrastructure can't handle the droughts and we can't make enough food to feed everybody.
But this is the science that is going to help solve those problems and prevent them from happening. And a lot of it's like trying to go away.
This mission, well, they can't make this one go away. It's in space right now.
Yeah.
Which is good.
They'll just delete it from the data banks whenever they
get
it.
Exactly. So the information from this satellite has direct application, not just like American farmers have both been on the ropes and not been on the ropes in many different ways over the last half century. This directly affects the heartland of America. Like directly affects everything that we do to feed ourselves and the world. And so this is one of my favorite missions because when I play like Civilization stuff, I love the whole farming aspect to a lot of the long-term strategy games, like creating the supply chains and stuff like that.
Until we learn how to photosynthesize, we're stuck on growing food.
Yeah, exactly. So it just, yeah, I love this mission for all of those reasons that, Charlie Bolden talked about it, and he's my hero.
This is not going to be another Charlie Bolden special.
No. And finally is the mission that is on the Make America Great Again chopping block. This mission is called CLARO, Climate Absolute Radiance and Refractory Observatory. So the mission is under concept, and it's under the mission concept is under cancellation under the Trump administration. The potential launch is 2023. So let's say in 2020 we get a Democrat in there. Yeah, we could revive this mission if it gets canceled, but that would make it be probably going up in the late 2020s, maybe 2030.
Yeah, because
the
development would have stopped.
Yeah, so there's a few mission options for this one. There's 2 copies of the satellite in 90-degree polar orbits, giving 100% global coverage of observation areas, and the cost is $800 million plus the launch. 1 copy gives us 62% of coverage, global coverage, and it costs $675 million plus the launch cost. Then there's 2 instruments that would go on the International Space Station, and it would give us 73% global coverage and cost $400 million, and that includes, the other prices did not include the launch cost. This $400 million does include the launch cost, and the need also to incorporate the cost of supporting 2 EVAs to actually install the systems on the International Space Station. So that one seems to be probably the best compromise, though I like the $800 million one. Just because, screw it, we could use to spend the money more on all of this kind of stuff and not that $54 billion on, nonsensical weapons that are designed to kill people. So the mission objectives of this, again, going back to the decadal survey of 2007, this is what recommended. Serve as a calibrating tool for other missions, improving accuracy by a factor of 5 to 10. So that's by 500 to 1,000% better accuracy on all of our other missions.
So this is a mission that will bolster other missions in such a huge way.
Yeah, so a nice sports analogy for you. There was one guy, he had long hair in the NBA, I forget who he was, but he wasn't a particularly good shooter, but and that team didn't have like a James Harden or a Kobe Bryant or a LeBron James, but he was good enough at passing and getting people open
Oh,
and
Steve Nash?
manipulating. Yeah, Steve Nash, that's him. He was good enough at manipulating space on the court to make three people that were good shooters great shooters. That's what this mission does.
Dude, Steve Nash is a phenomenal shooter. You need to get your metaphors right. I know mine were a little sloppy, but
I don't do sports. I just remember what my friend Federico
you had it.
Lombardi told me.
Just like just like all
I'm
just like
putting him
all of
under-
you NASA people, you had it 90% right. All right. He was great at
Everything this
manipulating
mission will-
space and getting others open, but he could also shoot. So, do not
Fair.
tarnish Steve Nash's name, please.
Fair enough.
Not on this podcast.
I apologize, Steve Nash. You're a great shooter. The point was you also make other players good.
Yes. That I will agree with.
Okay. So the next thing this mission does is it will test and evaluating climate models from the data that is gathered, and it measures the complete infrared spectrum of Earth and the RS, or reflected solar radiation off of Earth, and it also monitors the RO, or radio oscillation, which accurate temperature profiles are derived from this. The far infrared observation, which is 50% of Earth's energy emitted back into space, is, what this will help observe, and where heat is stored in water vapor. So those are, that radio oscillation we need to observe. And so what this does, it will help us map long-term trends in the Earth's temperature and climate, and it will give us a complete picture of Earth's energy budget. So Earth receives energy from the sun. Some of that energy is absorbed and kept in Earth's atmosphere. Other parts of that energy is absorbed into the plant life, and it goes into the entire life cycle. Other parts of it is reflected back into space. Then there's the geologic energy budget, which some of that heat goes up into the atmosphere as well, which this satellite will detect. And that first mission that I talked about that will measure geologic activity synergizes with this mission, because that will help us understand what's going on in the interior of the planet, because we can see how much carbon and how much energy is being released via that first satellite that I talked about, the hyper observation, or something. What was it called again? Hypersphere. Yeah, the hypersphere. And so this satellite is designed to give policymakers the data they need to make decisions how to deal with climate change. So, of course, Trump wants to cancel it.
You're right. That's more insidious than I thought it would be. Because they picked the one mission to chop that would affect other missions too.
Well, there are 3 other missions that are on the chopping block.
Yeah, but they picked like one that has such large impact and outreach. You're right. That was insidious.
Yeah. So any idea, any notions that these folks don't know what they're doing,
They know
or
exactly.
he doesn't know what he's doing, they know exactly what they're doing. Precisely and surgically
Long
know
live coal.
exactly what they're doing.
Long live coal.
Go coal. Yay. And then of course fracking and natural gas. Dino farts trapped away. But yeah, so these are just some of the things that NASA has developed, built, manages, and works very closely with NOAA, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Agriculture, the EPA, Health and Human Services. All of these folks end up using the data that comes from this. And these are, again, 2 of these missions are actually active.
But they've made the science of climate
Actually,
change.
wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. I went over 5 missions.
But
I'm
no,
sorry.
they're making the science of climate
so 3
change
missions
bipartisan.
are active.
And
Yeah, they're making it partisan.
or,
So
sorry, partisan, not bipartisan.
Ascends, GeoCape, and Sm- SMAP are up in space right now.
No.
Claro and High Spear are not. And High Spear is still moving forward, but Claro is on the chopping block.
And Claro is the big one.
Claro is a very, very far, like the other three that are.
Well, I was talking about the one, I was talking about the big one of the ones you talked about.
Well, I think they're all really important. Like
Yes,
Ascends is
but-
really, really
Oh
important
my
for
God, Carl.
understanding CO2.
I try to summarize anything you say, and you're like, no, no, stop trying to paraphrase my words.
No, don't do that.
You are a PR.
Science,
You are a PR major.
Science as diplomacy needs as many words as it can get its hands on. But yeah, this is a mission that affects a lot of other missions.
No, that's all I was trying
And-
to say, and you're just like, no. I'm like, but you just said it earlier that it affects other missions, and you're like, yes,
okay,
but
fine then.
yes, but
But there's SMAP, and I love that mission because
I know you love that mission, Carl. I know you do.
So, but yeah, so these are just a tiny fraction of the things that are done in your name that cost, again, about as much as a 20-ounce Coke bottle a year.
Yep. And
And so these are three that are currently operating. So there are 24 other missions.
maybe we need to start like explaining like how your tax dollars are distributed through like convenience store products you can buy.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that, and I've said that numerous times when I've tried to talk about how the space program and indeed the science institutions in our country should really talk about the resources. Because like on the James Webb Space Telescope website, it says, oh, it'll cost $8 billion to develop this telescope and its first 5 years of operation. So when I first read that, because I know the context of everything, I was like, wow, that's really cheap.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to be more than that because it went over budget.
And don't forget that a lot of
But
that
the
money,
Webb is also one 20-ounce Coke bottle a year.
yeah. Don't forget too that a lot of that money gets pumped back into the economy through ways like they have to hire people to make this stuff, and those people spend money. They have to
Yeah.
they have to buy the raw materials.
Not only is every red cent of that money spent pretty much exclusively here in America. There's a few, like ESA, like all of the money that's from U.S. tax dollars is spent here in America. But we have collaboration with the European Space Agency because they're providing the launch vehicle for James Webb. So some of that money might somehow end up going outside the United States, but like
Not the
almost
majority of it though.
yeah, like 99%, 95% of it is just all spent here. But also remember, this helps move technology forward. This helps move manufacturing, high-end, high-tech manufacturing forward in this
Yeah,
country.
we've talked about that
So,
before. How NASA helps
And
make
th-
better
it's
products.
The same, yeah, it's the same thing for all these Earth science missions. Not only, I just read off all the direct benefits from the information that we get from these things, but again, like you were saying, Justin, the $1.2 billion we spend on these 27 missions, and again, I didn't cover 24 of them. The benefits that just come from spending money on those things, on high-end jobs, like high-end jobs, creating icons in science for children to be inspired to live up to. Men, women, people of color, of all stripes, go into this business and become exemplars for the communities that they once came from. Like my mentor
Yeah.
was a chick from Arkansas.
Dude, STEM is the new blue collar, dude. Like
Yeah, it is.
it's
So-
where all the jobs are going, and NASA creates more jobs than our president does. I'm sure of that.
Well, and the thing is like I joked about this with all my NASA intern friends. I should have been an engineer. I
Everyone
look
should have been
at
an engineer.
I look at the people that I have been very close to, and I look at the things that they are just handed not easily. They work insanely hard for them.
Yeah,
But
you
I
gotta
worked,
put in the work, and you
yeah,
have to have the
but
intelligence for it. But
like one of them, she said, don't sell yourself short, Carl. Your GPA is scary. The things that you've done and accomplished are just insanely impressive. And okay, I'll take that compliment. But when I look at the things that she's done and the work that she put in, I thought that she worked harder than me, but she didn't. She thought that we worked pretty equally as hard for what we've accomplished. But if you look at what the world's handed her for all of her hard work in comparison to what the world's handed me, it's different. And the reason why is she is an engineer
yeah,
and I am not.
it's like whenever your grandparents were able to go get a factory job that could then buy a house, a car, send their kids to college, and everything like that. Like
Yeah,
that's what
and now
engineering
that's
gets
in
you
no
now.
way saying that I feel particularly bitter towards any of these people. I think that the institutions and the institutional memory of our research and engineering institutions could do a little bit better of a job. Um,
Yeah. Any kids out there
Making sure
listening,
that people
STEM
are
is the new
that
blue
are able
collar.
to, yeah. Well, they could do a little bit of a better job making sure that people that are good at communicating these things are able to more easily
No.
stay. But that's my own personal experience.
Yeah, if you
And the
get if
communication staff at NASA are amazing.
yeah,
They are so good at their jobs.
if you go into STEM right now, you have a super high chance of ending up in like upper middle class.
Yeah, and you get to build stuff. You get to make things. You get to invent the future. You get to have a huge direct effect on what civilization is going to be like for all of us. The reason why I want to do what I want to do is because I ended up in a place in my life where learning those skills was going to be more time consuming and more difficult just for where I was in my life than I wanted to invest. And I was already really good at communicating about science and engineering, and I loved NASA, so I chose the communications route. And that's been a harder route because that make the communications staff, as good as they are, they only make up 1% of the federal workforce at NASA. So
Yeah.
it makes it harder. Long story short, kids be engineers.
Yes.
And if you want to communicate about it, come to me. I'll tell you how to tweet.
But go into uh did you take off push to talk because I'm still echoing?
Sorry, I just have my finger on the button.
All right. Um but make sure you go into the good side of STEM and you don't go into the ExxonMobil side of STEM. And be the ones that come up with the technology for fracking. I think
Yeah, nice segue.
I know. I'm getting pretty good at these pivots. But
You should run for office.
one day. So we don't have a whole lot of time left, and I won't take up too much more. But we've been talking about how all of these missions are important for Earth science and everything, and they give us all this information that our current administration is trying to shove underneath the rug. And one of the reasons they're doing this is so they can continue these current practices, because there's a lot of money still to be made in fossil fuels. We're at pretty high rates moving away from fossil fuels. Green energy is growing a lot. We're getting better at battery technologies and everything like that. But you also look at how many cars are still on the roads, how many power plants are still run by natural gas and everything like that. With more opening, there's still trillions of dollars to be made in fossil fuels. And one of the more disastrous ways, one of the least environmentally friendly ways, in terms of the immediate damage and impact that it does, is fracking. Coal mining's not good. Drilling, like offshore drilling for oil, you have spills and everything that happen, and it destroys the environment. But fracking is something that is just taking all of that and saying, hold my beer.
And watch this.
Yeah. It does this in one major way is through its use of water. So let me throw out a little bit of numbers for you, okay? So in 2000, so it was January 2011 to August 2012. It's a 20-month period where this group called Frack Focus and Sky Truth. Sky Truth does a lot of like satellite imaging and uses a lot of numbers and everything, and Frack Focus is focused.
Cough, cough.
Yeah, but they took the EPA reports and kind of did the math. Frack Focus provided the number of like operating fracking sites, and then Sky Truth kind of took those numbers and took the EPA numbers and put out a report that said that during those 20-month periods, the U.S. in 20 months used 65.9 billion gallons of water for fracking. Right?
So I know that that's a lot, but I know a place where we can get a whole lot more. There's a black hole about 1,000 light years from here that has a disk of water that's orbiting around it, and it's got, I think, about...
Don't tell them that, because then they're going to want to ramp up fracking even more.
16 like septillion
it's
tons
not there.
of it.
It's not there. Exxon, it's not there. Don't go get the water so you can frack more Exxon.
It's like 1,000 light years away.
If it's profitable, Exxon will get us there. But
Exxon, go to the black hole. Go to the black hole and get the water.
Can you put Rex Tillerson on that flight?
No, well, here's the trick. What we're gonna do is they need to go, but Exxon, make sure most of the highest concentrations of water are past what's called the Schwarzschild line. Okay, so you got to go past the Schwarzschild line to get to most of the water, so you can come back to Earth.
Is that the line? Is that the line where once you pass it, you can't get back out?
Shut up.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you can totally get back out. Totally. Without a doubt. Anyway, so we used in those 20-month period, January 2011, 2012. Now, we were fracking before this, and we were fracking, and we're still fracking after this. The numbers of fracking rigs is growing. So this is a 20-month period. It doesn't count what we used before that, and it's not counting what we use after that. But in those 20 months, we used 65.9 billion gallons of water for fracking. And to take it back to Texas, about half of the water used came from Texas.
So that one river that runs through Austin, that was like completely drained.
I don't know if that's where they got the water from, but it probably didn't help.
Yeah. And then the other thing about that is, I remember you mentioned that because we were in a drought, because we were using so much water, when it did rain, it oddly made floods happen more easily because the soil wasn't primed to absorb.
Yeah, soil can be kind of weird. Like, in order for it to absorb moisture, it has to have moisture in it already, or else it just kind of pools at the surface, you know?
Yeah, but if you also have too much moisture, like what happened in Lafayette and in the southern Louisiana, Mississippi coast area a few months ago, we had some rain, and then it rained even more, huge.
Around the world, we have different ecosystems around the world because the life in those areas evolved over time to accommodate that area's natural climate, and we're disrupting that. But anyway, so we use a lot of water to frack. And the problem is that water cannot be reused because of the chemicals that they use to frack, that they add to this water. And these chemicals, they're made up of things like hydrochloric acid, sodium chloride, ethylene glycol, borate salts, all sorts of stuff. Each company has their own mixture and everything like that. And we don't know exactly the ratios they use. We don't know exactly what chemicals they're using, because these are all proprietary recipes. So just like how you can't, like, the government can't say, give us the exact formula for the Big Mac sauce. It's because it's proprietary. So the government can't pressure these companies to give their exact makeup. So they use all this water, and then the water can't be reused. But to compound things, they're also poisoning the watershed. All these chemicals seep down into, we have underneath the surface, they have all of these like water pockets and everything that are way down there, and that's where a lot of our water comes from. We pump that out of the earth, and these chemicals are poisoning that watershed, and we don't have the infrastructure in place to filter it in places like where it's happening. Lots of fracking goes on in Oklahoma, and then you have problems where the people in Oklahoma, they can no longer drink their water, and they have to import more water. And we talked about last time how California already imports a lot of water. Texas is pushing out lots and lots of water, so they don't. What happens when? Yeah, so what happens when Texas needs to keep that water, and it's going to an Exxon, or I keep using Exxon just as an example for big oil. Yeah, it's not just Exxon, but yeah. Oh, I bet. But I'll kind of summarize there is we use lots of water for this, and we talked last week about how water and usable farming soil, like usable farming areas, are super important, because whenever you start having it to where people can't grow food in areas, it causes these refugee crises, and it causes tensions to mount and everything like that. So this is kind of how it all ties in.
I will say is, you might be wondering, I was like, all right, well, we need energy. And it's like, well, yeah. Like, one of the big arguments always, well, we have to have energy and all this kind of stuff, and it's good jobs. Like, one of my friends' little brother works out in Oklahoma, and he's like, I make 6 figures already. And I was like, well, it must be nice having to import water for you to be able to drink and eat your food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to you right now, but it will whenever things start to, when things that you take for granted start to break.
Yeah.
And then because you've already screwed up the area that you're in, and you can't get that support from other locations, then the entire system starts to break down.
Like,
and then that ground up pulpy cotton that has green ink in it isn't going to be good for much.
Nope. But so like we can like just look at the map of the United States and where the hydraulic fracturing water use comes from. Like I said, Texas makes up about half of it, and then you have places like Colorado, Oklahoma, kind of up around the Great Lakes area. A lot of water comes from there. What happens whenever they can no longer sell California the water that they need for growing crops and food, and instead they choose to sell it to the fossil fuel industry because the fossil fuel industry can afford to pay more for it, and it's just like a compounding effect and everything like that. And fracking does so many other things that are equally as bad. I don't have time to get into. I would have liked to dedicate a little more time to fracking, but in order to keep the podcast on time frame, I'm just gonna. It doesn't bother me. We all know that fracking is bad. I encourage you to go out and look at some things. I'll leave like a little like reference sheet that you can kind of look into.
Yeah, just put it in the Google Doc, and I'll make sure that it ends up whenever I start uploading everything.
Yeah, just some like 2 or 3 things you can read, like the EPA reports. I'll even throw in a documentary that's fun to watch.
That's government. We can't trust those stats. They have an agenda.
Yeah. To summarize,
where they want to cripple the economy for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing that pisses me off, that people always say is like, oh, you environmental scientists and stuff like that, you have an agenda. You just want to keep on getting funding. And it's like, no, our agenda is to figure out what's going on so we can tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Anyway, guys, thanks for watching the 3rd episode of In Space and on the Left. We hope you like the format. This is, like I said, our 3rd episode, so we're still working the bugs and kinks out and finding our voice, so to speak. If you have things that you want to hear us talk about, leave a comment, or you can go to our website. I'm not sure, maybe we have like an email there or something that you can
Yeah, I'll make sure that all
Yeah.
that good stuff is ways of posting and getting in contact with us, subjects that you would like to hear.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would like to hear from anybody about who might know more about Texas voting demographics, and who does come out to vote and who doesn't. I would love to hear some really accurate information on that, because I don't like making generalizations about
Yeah.
demographic groups without really knowing if that's a particular true thing. So I would love to hear that so I can be corrected if I'm wrong.
Yeah, if
Which
you hear
I
anything,
hope I am.
yeah, if you hear us say anything that you believe is wrong and you have the facts to back it up from credible sources, by all means call us out. Just
Except for the moon landings.
Yeah.
Like, even if you find credible information on the fact that we didn't land on the moon, I just don't want to hear it. I'm dogmatic.
except
I'm
for
a
the moon
believer.
landings, yes. But if you have any recommendations for the show, any criticisms, we also want to know about that. We want to hear all your feedback that you have. So make sure you contact your House and Senate representatives and tell them that you are not okay with the current White House defunding all of this environmental research, and make sure that you let them know that NASA does a lot of good stuff and a lot of good places. So make sure.
Namely here in the United States.
Yeah. So
for me, again, I'll just echo what Justin said. Thanks for listening, y'all. We do it because we like to try and get the word out about little understood and unknown things about science, politics, and space. And yeah, do you have a subject that you have in mind for next episode? I know what I want to do on mine on.
I do not. It's going to be a surprise week.
Okay, so surprise week from Justin. I'm So I will be doing my next thing on the Albuquerque Warp Drive and the EM Impossible Drive, which is some of the fringe physics stuff that they work on.
Now
the
that
Eagle
sounds
Works
like
lab.
some Cowboy Bebop shit that I want to hear
It
about.
it is some Cowboy Bebop shit.
Yes.
And with that, we will see you later, Space Cowboy. Yeah, we did good. Sorry I absorbed so much time.